Hello guys, and welcome to a guide video on Heroes of the Incredible Tales for Anika, the Scythe user class. So today I will be giving you guys a brief basic understanding of the class, how to build her, what you should be prioritizing, and any sort of like skills and damage questions and answers that you guys may be having. So without further ado, let this video begin. So for number one, we have stat prioritization. So for this class, since the Scythe user class is a very high damage oriented character, what you want to be prioritizing is three really important stats. Like, you have your damage and defense, those are important, but what you really want to be prioritizing is crit rate, crit damage, and cooldown reductions, or reducing skill cooldowns. So for my Anika, I have 60.4% crit rate. It's going to go down a little bit later once I finish my Season 2 armor set, but I'm going to be working on getting this over at least 60% because if this class in general has a lot of crit damage. Like, this class has abnormal size amount of crit damage. Like you can see from mine right now has about 375% crit damage. So what you want to be doing is focusing primarily on crit rate first. Like, having crit damage is fine if you can crit, but critting is the most important part for this class. So you want to be heavily investing into crit rate, then crit damage. Now what you want to be prioritizing next is cooldown reduction, because this class, even though you do a lot of damage, tends to be really squishy. There's not many survivability. And in this game, if you use a skill, there's a not invincibility, but you take a lot of reduced damage when using another skill. So it's basically like super armor with a lot of damage reduction. So in a sense, you can look at cooldown reduction as getting tanky, because if you're able to spam more skills, it means you're less vulnerable to getting damage, which therefore means you're not going to die, which means you have a lot of survivability. So cooldown reduction is a really helpful skill to have. Okay, so for number two, I hope I pressed the right button here. Okay, yes, not. For number two, we have gear, weapons, and costumes. Now, a lot of new Anika users, I'd recommend getting the Hera's Might set, which I have for my headgear and gloves. My pet has the armor and the, well, she can't wear the, my pet can't use the boots, but you get the idea. I used to have the full set for Hera's Might, and I recommend this if you guys are going for a first set. Even though Season 2 armor is out just now, it's very costly to invest into a Season 2 armor. So if I were to give you guys advice, I'd recommend getting Hera's Might first, because this set is easy to obtain, gives really nice solid stats, and what else is there to say? There's crit rate, there's for 2-piece set, there's a defense increase by 7.5% as a 3-piece set, and there's the best part of the set is the reduction damage by 15% at 4 set. Now this set is really good for beginners, but if you guys are more advanced or like have more money to spend, then I'd recommend getting the Diana's Brilliant set, which is the Season 2 set that just came out last week. And this set right here is the bread and butter of all Anika's set right now. This set right here gives 12% crit rate at 2 sets. It gives 7.5% HP as 3 sets, which isn't that nice, but I mean, it's something. And lastly, you get 30% more crit damage to all skills when you have the full set of this armor set. Now this set here is by far the best set to have for Anika. It gives crit rate, it gives crit damage, and the defensive bonus from this set is far greater than Hera's Might. I believe if you have it fully transcended, it's probably 20 to 30k more defense than the Hera's Might set. And if you notice, Hera's Might, it gives 7.5%. I need to cover up the webcam real quick. It gives 7.5% defense, which will get negated after you finish the Diana's Brilliant set, so that's irrelevant. And reduced damage, that doesn't really matter because you're getting 20 to 30,000 defense more, which isn't that much different from 50% damage reduction. So in general, Diana's Brilliance is the set to have end game. So I'd recommend getting that set at the very end until Season 3 armor comes out. So work on that if you guys have the chance. Now for weapons, I recommend getting this bad boy right here. And this weapon is the Berserker's Gaia's Dominus. Now there's two Season 2 Berserker items to get. There's the Diana's Brilliance one and Gaia's Domination. I'd recommend getting Gaia's Domination because even though it has less attack than Gaia's Domination, it has more crit rate and crit damage overall. And those stats scale harder than just flat attack in general. So I recommend getting that first. If you guys have trouble getting a Gaia's Domination, just use a Hera's Might, I guess, or use whatever weapon you have available. But work towards getting a Gaia's Domination Berserker if possible, because this right here, Berserker, is generally, arguably, the best unique skill to have in the game, even if you include PvE, because PvP, hands down, is the best unique skill to have. You take so much damage reduction, it's insane. Just look at it right here. I'm just tap on it. Mine right now is skill 13, and it reduces damage by 34% if any damage I receive is more than 6.4% of my current HP, which is insane. Yeah. If for gems, since you can reroll gem slots, you can reroll gem slots. I recommend getting any sort of crit rate and crit damage ones. So basically the emeralds and the topazes. If possible, try to go for two topaz slots. One is okay, but you're gonna see why later. I'm gonna say getting at least 2 is good. 3, if you get 3 topaz slots, that's really good, I think, in my opinion. But I think that's overkill for crit rate, unless you have that low crit rate that you need to have 3 topazes. But I think 2 is more than enough. And try to get as high of gems as possible. I have 2 immortal topazes, so I stick to that, and that's really helpful. As for skills to reroll, you can see like these 3 skills I have on my weapon. Give me a sec. I'm gonna hover my mouse over. Right here, I have crit rate and crit damage. These 2 are what you want to focus on primarily. Now the third skill, you can have whatever you want. I personally recommend getting the cooldown reduction one, but since my RNG is pretty bad, I just stuck with this one. This is the best I can roll primarily right now. But for the main 2 skills you want to focus on is crit rate and crit damage. If you have those 2, you're generally just good to go. Try to roll as high as possible. Notice how crit damage of all skills is in rainbow or like shining. That means it's it's a top tier stat roll. So you want to try to aim for that as high as possible. Either crit rate or crit damage. I'd focus on crit rate if possible. That's it for weapons. For costumes, not much to say about costumes. Generally, if you're a free-to-play player, just take whatever you have and use it. If you're a pay-to-play player, I'd recommend just getting crit rate, crit damage, and if you're focusing on PvP, good for PvP reduction, PvP damage increase. So for my PvE, I have just damage increase and crit damage skills. My wings, or not wings, my cloak has crit rate on it, damage reduction. My wings have just all damage right here. And these other ones are just, I'm just holding on to them until I have better stats. I could buff this one up because it gives 0.9% crit rate, but reduced debuff duration is not that great, so I don't want to focus primarily on that one yet. And this one too. This one has crit rate, but it has reduced debuff duration, so I don't want to get too fancy with that just yet. As for my PvP, everything's generally the same. I just have my weapon is increased PvP damage by 4.3%, and my top has PvP damage increased by 4.3% and reduced PvP damage by 4.1%. So that one's really good for PvP. 3, we have skill points. Now, skill points differ from player to player. For me, I generally focus on multi-hits, because in all games, if you stack a lot of crit rate and crit damage, you want to have a lot of multi-hits. Like, yes, you can have single hits, and I think that's fine in my opinion, but I like having multi-hits because if your crit rate is not super high, you don't want to have a lot of multi-hits, because multi-hits basically gives it so you have more chances to proc your crits. And if you proc more crits, you do more damage, and therefore that's self-explanatory. So you want to have as many multi-hits as possible. So for my PvE skill set, I use Death's Pummel enhanced because of my Season 2 weapon. And this hits 3 times, or 4 times I think, 3 or 4 times, I can't remember. And I have this fully maxed out. like every single is really good. You have damage increase, cooldown reduction, crit rate, and crit damage. All are necessary for Anikas, and they have to have all of these if they want to do maximum damage. Not really, but you get the idea. Ruining Whirlwind, this one hits many times, so I recommend getting this one if you go PvE. This one just do massive amounts of damage if you're just getting right in front of enemies. Just spin, crit, and you just kill everything in your way. And lastly, Death's Grasp. This one's pretty good too. If I had more points, I'd focus primarily on this one, and I go for, since I didn't finish it up because I'm missing 4 more skill points. I'll probably buy that later. I went crit rate first, then I went crit damage, then I went cooldown reduction. Now you can do damage first, then cooldown reduction, but it's up to you, whichever you want first. I want more survivability, so I went for a cooldown reduction one first. So this one for me. And then you can do damage last if you want. And that's about it for skills. And training points allocation. This is the fun part. Now after, I think it was like level 45. Yeah, I think 40 or 45. I can't remember. I think it was 40. You cap at 20, and therefore after that point you start using skill tickets or training tickets. And those don't come every day now, especially with the new update where you don't get as many because you can't do both Yeti and you can't do the Altar of Purifications at the same day because you're doing them alternating one after the other. So you're very limited to training tickets. So what I recommend for everyone to do is first max all of these skills to 20. After you max everything to 20, focus on damage, defense, and HP. That will get you towards your later end of the game. So like I say level 50 up or 55 and up, you have attack, defense, and HP that will help you survive most of the end game dungeons there. And then once you cap at level 70 or whatever, and you're done with all your dungeons and you finished every single maps possible, throw everything you have into crit damage. Now I can do the math for this, but basically investing the crit damage is a lot more useful than investing the crit rate. Now I say this because look, if you go back to my weapon, give me 1 second. I have Immortals, Topaz, and I have a Legendary Emerald. Now, Immortal Emeralds give 17% crit damage, and Immortal crit rate gives 3.2%. Now, look at the math here. If I were to invest 1 training ticket, or this says 2 right here. If I were to invest 2 training tickets into crit rate, I'm only getting 0.2. Now, for it to pay off in price of a Immortal Topaz, that means I'm spending 16 points into just crit rate to get 3.2% crit rate. So that is essentially 32 tickets spent on just getting 3.2% crit rate, where you can just get an Immortal Topaz and just throw it on there and get the same amount. Whereas crit damage, I think the math was like 1.9% crit rate per level, and you get more than enough because Immortal crit damage gem is 17% max. So you can essentially get that amount in just 9 points in a crit damage. So you're saving 7 points, 7 usage of crit rate, and you can save that by just putting the crit damage. So that's why I say you guys should focus primarily at end game on just crit damage. Throw every single training ticket you have into crit damage. Like, yes, it's expensive because right now, I'm putting my camera real quick. It's 74k per level up, and I'm probably gonna have to change it a little bit later because it might get costly. But if money's not an issue, throw everything you have into crit damage until you get to the cap or whatever. And after that, you can go into attack. I recommend going to attack because at that point you'll be having a lot of crit rate. And for these two, I guess if I were to pick one, if you guys were to pick one, or if I were to pick one, I'd go for this one. And this one is just crit rate resistance. And because, yes, you can reduce crit damage resist, but at end game, everyone has over 350%. And what are you really mitigating? You're mitigating nothing. You're taking a lot of damage in like an instant, so it doesn't really matter if you can resist like 0.6% more. So don't invest into this. It's a waste of money. Never invest into this skill. Attack speed, I don't really like attack speed because I just spam skills because I have a lot of cooldown reduction. So these two skills are irrelevant to me. I just think nothing of it. HP is not that great endgame as well, because at endgame you have so much HP from just pets, accessories, gear in general. You don't really need this, and you're spending 2 tickets to get like what, 800 more HP, which is like nothing because you're taking like 60,000 damage per hit anyway, so that's not useful. So if I were to focus on stats, I go at endgame, this is endgame, go crit damage, attack, and after that you can decide between defense or crit rate. If depending on what you need more, go into that. For me, I'm good on crit rate, so I'd probably go into defense, then I'll go into crit rate. And then after that, I'm good to go with whatever until I'm maxed out. And yeah, that's for skill training points allocations. Now, my final thoughts on this class. Yes, this class is great. This class does so much damage. I can like literally 3-shot anyone in PvP if you have the correct builds and the correct weapons and the correct gear. Like, yes, I can say that about any game, because at any game, if you hit end game, you're basically doing a lot of damage. But this class in general, it's so good if you, I mean, any class is good if you know what you're doing, but like, this class is just, how would I put it? I want to say it's user friendly. Why I say user friendly is because most classes, you catch them in a combo, you do the whole combo and they take like 90% of HP. Whereas Anika class, you get them with a Death's Funnel and they're dead. They're basically dead because your chain combos are so long. If you crit every single hit, and you proc your massive crit damage on every single hit, they're basically dead. They can't do anything. Like for my class, I can do 160,000 damage if I catch one person with a maximum death funnel, full combo, and they're just dead afterwards. So this class is super strong. The one problem is that you're vulnerable many times. So that's why I say that this class should maximize cooldown reduction. Well, every class should maximize cooldown reduction, but this class should maximize cooldown reduction primarily because you're really squishy if you don't have cooldown reduction. You have low defense unless you focus primarily on defense, but at that point, what's it really matter? Because if you go into defense, you're not going to offense, and offense just destroys people endgame. So just think of this class as high damage, maximize super armor and invincibility frames, and that's about it. So yeah, guys, that's my really long discussion and I guess guide, you can call it, for Anika class. Really fun class. I'd highly recommend it for players that are looking for a very burst heavy class, really damage oriented class. Trust me, you'll be out damaging a lot of people at raids. I've out damaged people like 50,000 more attack than me because I focus primarily on the correct stats. So yeah, guys, that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoy my long discussion about Anika classes, and I'll see you guys next time. Look at that dancing polar bear.